is a good example of that. I mean, for medical professionals, and also there are some other vaccinations now required in Texas. I think the human papillomavirus, for girls in Texas.
Meningitis is big.
Yeah, meningitis. I mean, so those things that are mandated, you will often see at CVS and Walgreens. They'll have those, come in and get those. So I think, yes, I think we'll see that where they will start, because these machines are so portable, and it's very easy for those groups to, they already have relationships with most of the doctors' offices around town, so it's very easy for them to have or even a central database. As I said, the EKGs can be read remotely from pretty much anywhere. So I think that will definitely have to come, because so that we can meet this mandate.
Now, do you, on that remotely, would you? I'm just seeing a scenario where, say, a high school, they do 500 EKGs or whatever, and they ship them off to a doctor. Is reading them as simple as I can look at it and see an abdomen, or do I really have to study each one? And could that be a problem where you get, the doctor says, I'll do it for you, and I get 500 to look through, and I start missing things because I start rushing? Or is it really, when you read them, 12-point or whatever it is it really simple to see these conditions? Or I'm wondering about liability. Could you start missing things because there's so many of them to read that you start looking at them and, I missed this. I missed it was off by one little line on the graph, and I missed his heart condition? Or is it pretty clear? What do you see on when you talk about sending them off to be read?
Right. Oh well, some of them are fairly. First of all, the algorithms that they have now for reading the pediatric ECGs are fairly good, in that the algorithms will 95% of the time or more they will get it right. So, for example, the ECG that is called normal, it will be normal in 95% or more of the cases. If the ECG is abnormal, the algorithms will either call a specific abnormality, like, for example, Brugada syndrome, or significant hypertrophy that we'd see, for example, in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or they may say normal variant. So if realistically, if you look at, let's say we're doing 100 ECGs, probably 90% of those would be normal or normal variant. There would be probably 5 to 10% of them that would have something that, and the commonest thing that we've seen in our group is just hypertrophy. And the question then becomes, is this physiological hypertrophy because this person is doing a lot of endurance stuff and that this is just a normal variant, or is this a hypertrophy from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy? So in our study, and also we do screening at Rice University here in town, that's the commonest one that we see that is flagged as abnormal. And the only way to reliably deal with that is to do an echocardiogram. And so typically what we'll do with that is that we'll have the kids come and we'll do, for example, in a screening 100, we'll typically have about 5 that have this situation arise. And they're all athletes, but again, without doing other studies, it's can be very difficult to differentiate hypertrophic cardiomyopathy from athletes' hearts. So we will do an echocardiogram. The echocardiogram, within about 5 minutes, will know which one it is. And so that will be a fairly quick, and in all cases that we've done so far, that I've been involved in at Rice, they have all come back as just physiologic athlete's heart. We have not had a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy so far. So and now once that's done, then let's say they come back for their screening next year for their ECG. Now they still get an ECG, and it shows hypertrophy. Now we don't need to. We can now reclassify that hypertrophy as physiologic hypertrophy. So we will change the reading, and we'll just say, instead of abnormal, we'll just say physiological hypertrophy, normal variant, because we already know we've done the echo on that person last year. So oftentimes with these cases, these quote-unquote false positives, they need one-time test and a one-time seeing someone, and they're good to go for that. In terms of, we now know, okay, as long as they know, and oftentimes we'll give these kids, particularly when they're moving, we'll give them a copy of their ECG as well. Because what we find is that some of these kids will, oftentimes it'll be after we've already done the echocardiogram. They'll say, when I was in, high school, we had an ECG screening, and they told me I had an abnormal ECG, and so
Okay.
we'll give them. Oftentimes, we'll give these kids a copy of their ECG as well to have for their medical file for the next doctor, so that when they, if they move or if they go to another, playing with another university, that they'll at least know, okay, this is a normal variant.
And so the whole sending them off, they're already flagging. You're not reading 300 independently. You're reading
Right.
You're reading the 12
A very
of those
small
300.
subset, exactly.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So the technology, I mean, they'll verify everything. So every ECG will be looked at by at least one physician. Every ECG, even the ones
To
that are
make
normal.
sure it was done correctly.
Yeah, just to make sure that there's nothing that, because very rarely the computer algorithm will make a mistake, but in general, the ones that are normal, which are going to be 90% or more, are really normal, and it's only the ones that are flagged. Those are the ones where the doc really has to stop and look and take a look. But I can tell you, most of those cases will then need to go on to get an extra study. For example, if the ECG machine may call a Brugada syndrome, and the only way really to sort that out is for them to get a special electrophysiological study done by an electrical cardiologist specialist, and they literally go in there and they try to put them into that sudden cardiac death rhythm. So
Awesome.
they literally they try. And if they are, and because they have catheters and everything like that, they can control everything. They can put you in a rhythm and take you out of it. Like they have the technology to do that. So, and literally, if they can put you into what is considered a dangerous rhythm or one of the early stages of a dangerous rhythm, then that's, as far as they're concerned, that's enough evidence. And then you'll need to get an ICD, implantable cardioverter defibrillator. Now, with that, that will prevent you from having sudden cardiac death. And there are cases of professional athletes who play with an ICD in place. So, but because they know, well, if something does happen, this is going to save their life. So I think it is important for the athletes out there to know that, and for other people thinking about screening, that just because you get diagnosed with something doesn't mean that you're never ever going to be able to do anything. That's the important thing. It might be that depending on the condition, they may not be able to be a basketball player, but they may be able to do something else, which is more lower or intermediate intensity. So that's an important thing, and some of them too, like I said, that are treated with these different implantable things, or some of them are cured with surgery, etc. So it's something that don't be super scared about, that oh my God, everything has to stop, because in a lot of these cases we now have the technology to treat them and to or do things to reduce your risk. So it's not game over for everyone, but at least it gives them the opportunity to have a life. And I think that's the you talked before, Mark. It is an emotional topic, because a lot of the people there who were testifying last a couple of weeks ago for this bill were parents who had no idea that their children had a underlying problem and died. There was one amazing story of a cardiologist. So this is a cardiologist in Boston, and his son, he was with his son, who was 16. He played basketball and all that. They were in Haiti on a missionary trip, and there was some old, someone had donated some old ECG machine, which was in a corner, and they, he fired it up. He wanted to check it to see, and he had his son sit down, and he did an ECG on his son, and he had like OMG. His own son, this is a cardiologist, and his son, who, he sees every day of his life, he diagnosed in Haiti with this old machine, and when he got back to Boston, he had to go and have surgery at the Massachusetts General Hospital to save his life. And this is a cardiologist. So I'm a cardiologist, so this guy didn't even know there was a problem with his own son.
Right.
So, and this is kind of, one of the best type of doctors who would recognize these problems. So if he didn't, I think it's going to be hard for anyone else to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, because I'm definitely not, like I said, my specialty with the heart was when we cut out the frog's heart. So
yeah,
but it's just it's just like he said, is that we want to take care of the athletes that are complaining of, I'm tired, I just can't, something's not right, and the coach is over here screaming, get him in there, or get her in there. quit being a baby. You hate that, but because you want the kid to participate, and you don't want everybody to have sudden chest pain because he gets to sit out. But yet, like you said, it's like concussions. It's the exact same thing. You hit your head, you're fine, get back in there. Well, how do we know something's not going in there? So we tend to be on the side of, let's get you out, let's do a full evaluation.
Right.
Let's sit you in the shade for a little while, let's see how it goes. And how do we know when, there is something going on versus, because there's no trigger, I wasn't there. I was next door at another school when a kid was stretching before the first day of two-a-days in 2008. He went down, and they had to use an AED on him. And it's not even watch him during high-stress physical activity. He was doing nothing, and it's scary. How do you do that? A concussion, there has to be a hit usually. A whiplash or a hit, or something. Then you concentrate. But with AEDs, it's the kid's laying over there. Is he unconscious, or is he just sleeping before practice? You never know. And so it's a topic for us that's frightening, yet I hate to say exciting, because then we get to finally do what we're trained to do. But it's very frustrating because you get these kids that you really want to do a full workup on, but they're the one that they cry wolf all the time. They're always the one hurt. Right. Well, now it's this, and it'd be nice if there's something we could look for, and there's not. Clearly.
Right. No, I think until we get some sort of universal screening program, which is comprehensive, I think it's going to be a gut call. I would say this much, but it is important to make sure the kids are hydrated. A lot of kids also, and drugs is an important thing too. And I'm not talking about necessarily cocaine and ecstasy and that sort of stuff. I'm talking about some of the problems we've had with energy drinks. And a lot of kids are using energy drinks prior to athletic activities. And we know that, those have been associated with some issues with heart, with arrhythmias or irregular heart rhythms, with, sudden cardiac death. So check with the kid. And I would say if the kid's complaining of something, do a check yourself, make sure that they haven't told you, for example, they didn't tell you about, they just had a cold and have had a fever, the last couple of days, or they've had diarrhea, and they're having issues with fluids, or they have not been taking their fluids for whatever reason. So make sure that they have not created a stress for themselves, and take them out of get them out of the game, get them into a cool area if it's hot, which most of the time it is down in Houston, and make sure they're well hydrated, and that there is nothing else going on that they haven't told you about. But if as you said, Mark, if it's something that is they're telling you about a problem, and particularly if there's people around, if they're telling you and there's a witness to that, then if you don't do anything, then you could run into problems, and you can't. Sometimes it can be really difficult, because you might have a kid who has a very low threshold for pain and tells you about everything that you can imagine, and nothing's ever going to happen to him. But then on the other hand, you might have the kid who is wants to make his parents proud, does not want to get cut from the team no matter what, and they may be the one that is not telling you about anything, and it's not until they get almost like an extremis that they'll say, oh, I think there's something wrong, and then they collapse. So you can't say, well, I think that person's just a hypochondriac, and they're always complaining, so we'll just leave it alone. You just don't know these days. So I think without knowing, and also without having the screening, I think you need to err on the side of safety and do the extra workup.
And you brought supplements up, which is, I think, or energy drinks, which is huge, because it's seems like every other week, some supplement company's been shut down because they found that they have extra ingredients that aren't on the label, which are usually stimulants. And here you have high stress condition in the heart, and I think that's a big part. Is my friend brought this back from wherever they were at, and I took a couple and it worked. So here, take one. It gave me boost of energy, and why? Because your heart's racing. And so if there's one little thing off, then that could be an easy way to trigger it. I think that's a huge point is, did you take anything before practice? Yeah.
And a lot of people, these days too, are taking different things. They want to get more muscly. they're trying different things, and some of these things are above board and over the counter stuff, but some of them they're getting from reputable unreputable sources, or even ordering over the internet. And and I think but yeah, energy drinks is one I think that is